Thank you very much, Martin. Next, I'd like to invite Lin from TWN Network to talk about Durban and the future of the Kyoto Protocol.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do my best to speak louder than the other side. But if you have problems hearing me, please just wave, and so I will remember to speak a little louder. I'm just going to address directly really the issue of the Kyoto Protocol, but of course it's not just about the Kyoto Protocol, but it's about the future of the mitigation regime. Linked with this, of course, is the big issue that Martin mentioned, and that is the whole big political issue, well, at least it's big in the media, about the so-called Durban Mandate, whether or not Durban should or will launch a new mandate for a new treaty. So this is really just a cluster of issues that I will address in some detail. Now, the issue about killing the Kyoto Protocol, of course, has been on the cards for a very long time. A few years ago already, we started having lots of media reports, and this was a view that was pushed out really by the developed countries. This misconception that the Kyoto Protocol is to expire in 2012. In fact, on my way here on the plane, I was on a South African Airlines flight, and in the magazine, of course, it was a big feature on COP17, and it said, the Kyoto Protocol is going to expire in 2012, and I forgot to bring that copy so that I could show it to the South African government. But that's what's been going on. This misconception has been purposely put out, spread in the media and the public, so that in the public's mind, this negotiations is all about finding a replacement for the Kyoto Protocol. So all those terms like post-Kyoto have been floating around for some time, just to shape expectations about what we're really doing here. Now, developed countries want to replace the Kyoto Protocol. They don't want to enter into a second commitment period. Of course, some, like the EU, are saying they're open, but if you really look carefully at the details of the position and what they're proposing, it's not what they want, and they also make that clear. Why don't they want the Kyoto Protocol? Well, for a start, it has legally binding commitments that bind all of these developed countries to reduce their emissions by specific amounts. And of course, you could say that it only covers developed countries, but this is supposed to reflect the historical responsibility, and this is agreed in 1997 already when the Kyoto Protocol was adopted, and actually before when the negotiations for the Kyoto Protocol were launched, that because of developed countries' historical responsibility for the emissions that are already in the atmosphere, there has to be a specific mitigation treaty just to deal with the developed countries. And of course, developing countries have mitigation obligations, and these are under the convention, and these are supposed to be addressed under the Bali Action Plan, which is the AWG-LCA negotiations. Now, during the course of the Kyoto Protocol negotiations for the second commitment period, all countries agreed that we would adopt a science-based approach, that we would actually look at the latest science, and at that time it was the IPCC report that was saying 25 to 40%, and we would set that as the aggregate target, and then we would work out among the developed countries how to divide up that target among themselves based on their own capabilities and their own responsibilities. But the target was supposed to be science-based and of course equity-based, because the more developed countries do, the less developing countries have to do, and the less developed countries do, the more developing countries have to do. So it has to be science-based and equitable. And the Kyoto Protocol also, of course, has extremely detailed rules on accounting, reporting, review, and these have been negotiated over many years. They're contained in a set of decisions called the Marrakesh Accords, and these are already implemented now. And very importantly, the Kyoto Protocol has a compliance regime. It has international compliance, whereby if you don't meet your target in the first commitment period, you would then face some kind of penalties or sanction in the next. So this is really the whole package of the Kyoto Protocol that the developed countries don't want anymore. And of course, there's the other side of the Kyoto Protocol, and that's the whole thing about the market mechanisms, CDM, JI, emissions trading. Ironically, that's the part that we, as civil society, have been campaigning against for so many years. But that's exactly the part of the Kyoto Protocol that the developed countries want, and they want to terminate the part that is good. They don't want that anymore, the legally binding emissions and the rules and compliance. And they want the part that is bad, that we would like to get rid of, which is all the flexibilities, the market mechanisms that lets them get away with not doing real emissions at home. So what happened really in Bali in 2007? The whole world agreed, and this included the US Bush administration at that time, that we would continue with the Kyoto Protocol, finish negotiations for the second commitment period. The US would do something under the convention, since they weren't going to ratify the Kyoto Protocol, and that's already a huge concession. Why should the US get away with doing something under the convention when all the other developed countries have to do something under the Kyoto Protocol? But we agreed because, as Martin said, the US is a special basket case, and of course, developing countries agreed to do much more than they already are obliged to do under convention, and they were going to do the nationally appropriate mitigation actions, provided that developing